politics and governance, who did what, where, when, why, how. And of course, we never fail to ask the question how much money is or has been used, and how much more or less is the taxpayer going to incur. I am joined by Emmanuel Bosiri, who is our analyst, who helps us analyze as well as digest one to three things and matters discussion that we are having here. Now, of course, a lot is going on in our country, Kenya. A lot is going on in East Africa, in Africa, and the world at large. And here is where OK Table is a place where we discuss all this and try to find a way forward, most definitely. Now, what is currently happening? So every single day we get different bills being taken or being proposed to Parliament. And this time round, the Chief Justice, that is Martha Koome, has been pushing for two major things. Number one in the list has been a proposal for community service and rehabilitation for prostitutes. Now, of course, we know it's illegal. Prostitution is illegal in Kenya, but it is also a crime. Actually, not illegal. Prostitution is criminalized in Kenya, whereby we know that you face probably 3 years jail time if found practicing prostitution. Now, I want to bring in Emmanuel on that is proposition of bill number one. That is a proposition of trying to decriminalize prostitution in Kenya. And I want to know, what is your take on this particular bill being passed to Parliament or being proposed? That is.
First, we want to agree that in as much we're living in a country, any country must have law. And a lawlessness country is bound not to grow and move on. I don't want to talk much about this one because I might be unfair if I want to use maybe the biblical concepts and know how, but let me use them. Constitution allows. A prostitution is not allowed from the Bible and from any religious book. And by that, due to the human nature of diverting from the Lord's law, so we find out to a point whereby that the Bible, or rather the religious books, has condemned, will be legalized. It's just like we have divorce allowed.
No.
Whereby the Bible does not allow divorce, whereby it only gives one reason. But when you come here outside, you find that there are more than 50 reasons why two people should divorce. But coming now to the reality, now that prostitution is all over, it's rampant all over the world. As a country, we need to look for a way to regulate it. And now that we cannot bring it to an end, we will look for a way to bring it to an end, so at least some things might continue on. First, when we define prostitution, prostitution is whereby you offer sex for money in return.
No.
And when we dive in and get the reasons, we can even get that people come in for prostitution to get food. There are people who've been moved to a point that they don't have the next meal, and maybe they look it as a way to get meals for their next to survive and to sustain them until the next customer maybe comes in. And here we have both genders are involved.
No.
Now, in most cases, it's assumed that prostitution is whereby a man purchases a lady for a night, or for depending how they spend it. But we have cases whereby even female can offer money on return to male, in whatsoever how they term it. So the government has been trying by all means as possible to make sure that the term prostitution is never mentioned in our country. But we have humanitarian groups, and humanitarian groups come in and try to give this and this, just like we have LGBTQ. You might find that it's not existing. It's only that the humanitarian groups have come in and they want to express everything through human rights. So through human rights, in as much we want to have respect for human rights and everything, So we should not violate that. So you should not be forcing to be a prostitute, to do prostitution with someone who is not ready. So by this we can find it that in as much we use now the law, let's find are you forced. Now these are it's you to make a decision.
No.
First they will all maybe line up there, maybe those ladies. So you as a man, it's you to make a decision to go and avoid have a deal. In most cases, you find out that prostitution can be a crime zone. As it has been noted out that the prostitutes, when you go in and a man, the outcome or the exit plan for that night of particular event normally does not happen well. We've had many men complain that they went to this and this restaurant with this and this prostitute, and on return maybe he did not pay according to the agreed amount, and by her maybe feeling offended, called the gang, and they decided to rob him intentionally. But again, it has been used as a trick. Men are bound to fall by food and sex. So if you give a man food and sex, you are bound to conquer him. So this is a narrative that women and female have identified well. And by using it, someone can be, not all who practice prostitution are poor. Other reasons will be coming in, like a heartbreak. Some give out that they had relationship and then heartbreak came. They did not able to nurse the heartbreak, so they resort back to prostitution as a way maybe to get sexual satisfaction. And by this, so you find out there are many reasons. So when I'm trying to point out on 2 or 3 before I give my last view on it. So at this point, you find out that prostitution can be used as a crime zone, whereby it's well noted that this particular man, we want him. And maybe the gangs and robbers they have known his ways. So by using maybe 2 or 3 prostitutes to win the man, you find out that that's a crime. Now that's no prostitution. So a man is narrowed down, cornered, and then maybe killed, and his property taken away. And the third reason I could be talking about, maybe about prostitution, it could be about peer pressure. So you find out that these ladies who are independent, who are practicing prostitution, they try to bring pressure to young ladies, telling them, you don't need a man. You don't need a man who is poor. You need to spoil out yourself and be able to get your money. And for real, you get this money from other men. So by offering sex, you're getting money, but you're lying to others that you are independent. So when you happen to go to their houses, you find out that they live in good houses. They have everything that gratifies the eye. Anything that they want, they can be able to get it. And I'm sorry to say this, but I will hide it behind, without mentioning name. I happened to be doing some business back in around last year. It was about selling the coaches, the good seats for the houses. Jokio Furniture, in Jokio Furniture, they know that. And by the way, if you want good seats, they can book me now. Now, the Jokio Furniture here, we used to sell good seats and the modern ones, actually. The minimum about 7-seater used to go around 60,000. So there's this lady who was a high school teacher, and then she was married, and then she had an affair with another person, working in a different county. So they had to strike a deal, and with another person whom I knew, they got an alternative house that she only rented for, I think, 1 week. And then it was a deal with a caretaker then, and then she came in, placed a mattress on the floor, and some few clothes on the wardrobe, pretending that she's poor and she's not able, so that the other man
kwa sababu nimeona watu wetu pia wako hapa, wale wanaongea Kiswahili. sisi tunajaribu sana, na ningetaka niambie Wakenya wote, saa zingine inaweza kuwa tunaona misukasuko kama iliko ya mafuta.
So after the bargain, we landed at around 90. And then the seats were being taken, transported to that alternative house. I think it lasted for a night. If it took to, I think, 1 day. And then the seats were being arranged there. The man came and so and was being told this went to be our house. And then later, when he had gone now, the deal was good and he had gone back to job. The lady had to use alternative means, alternative transportation. The house was cleaned again. The property was taken to the real house now where she stays. And I think she could have changed their number and other things could have continued.
Investment.
So that's I don't know how to call it. Is it a business? I don't know. But that's what's happening in many scenarios in our country, and maybe many men fall victim of kind of such businesses. So I think that's prostitution. Which name can we
probably an investment. Using what you have to get what you want. We'll probably use that term. But you've mentioned something really important that I'd like to also touch on, Kidogo, about prostitution, even as per our constitution being both male and female, because most people, when they hear the term prostitute, they always relate it to women, you know. And we've seen from time to time, even in our country, Kenya, for example, we saw there's a time the government or authorities actually raided some places in Kilimani and the likes that are masquerading as massage parlors, as spas, but in real sense, these are dens of prostitution, you know. And of course, right now, there is a question I have for you, but before that, now, initially, you would face jail time if you were found practicing prostitution. But now, this proposed bill is actually trying to compensate, because at the end of the day, these guys are humans, you know. So some of the proposed forms of punishment, you have verbal punishment in Kenya. I don't know what verbal punishment is supposed to entail. Probably, if you know, you'll tell us. We have conditional discharge, we have probation, we have community work, as well as rehabilitation, that is for the sex workers. Now, earlier on, I think last month, we had a debate on if prostitution should be legalized in Kenya or decriminalized in Kenya. And when we're looking at some of the possible benefits of decriminalizing prostitution, one of them is that if you decriminalize, or if you decriminalize, not legalize prostitution in a country, it actually will contribute to less or lessened insecurity, lessened robberies, lessened crime. What's your take on that?
What I can say here, and from my own understanding, it will be impossible. It's almost impossible to term prostitution illegal in our country, in many other countries. It's an impossibility. But what can be done is to look on ways how to regulate it. Maybe perhaps by giving in maybe a age limits, whereby we don't have a scenario whereby high school students are going to get into prostitution. Where young females who are married again, you know, even those married are practicing prostitution.
100%.
So you find out that your wife or your man is doing prostitution, and this one I don't think, unless there are things we only leave it to God to bring a solution, and maybe it's a one clear indication that we are in the end times. Another thing maybe I could be talking about is that bills in our country at times cannot be taken to be serious, because if we say that we want to take someone to jail for having done prostitution, and I think that's one source another possibility, because it's rare for us to hear and discuss about someone being taken to court and being punished there for 3 year jail term limit.
No.
Something that I think if you are taken to court and then unless your lawyer is not that serious, that's something that you'll be coming out clean as you're being taken. And again, who's taking you? So unless it's being conjoined with maybe security threats and other chain of activities that could lead you to maybe prison or being taken for long. But just going and doing your business services, and in most cases actually they are not even identified. In most cases they're not identified.
No.
Yeah. And again, with technology, technology has good advantages and disadvantages. So to them, instead maybe of lining up, maybe in the code, they have found an alternative, maybe offering their services online. We've seen dating sites online.
No.
We've seen prostitution sites online.
No.
And people are being hooked up all over. And then you see, there's something maybe we need to have a different day to discuss more about it. And maybe an expert. I'm not an expert in social life.
Yeah.
And someone might say that maybe you're pointing at them and something they are not doing. Yeah. But now answering your question about the bills and being made into a law.
No.
That's what they can do even within a day. But can it be implemented? That's a big question.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
And as well, we're asking you guys out there, that is our viewers, your take on decriminalizing prostitution in Kenya, or better yet, lessening the charges that initially were there when it comes to prostitution, of course, when it comes to premises prostitution. And once again, when we talk about prostitution, we are talking about both male and females who are involved in this. Now, speaking of bills, speaking of the House, speaking of pushing these things and amending these things, we know that we still have the bipartisan talks ongoing, and of course, the National Dialogue Committee was formed in order to ensure that it deals or it finds a way to bring that is Raila Odinga as well as Mheshimiwa Ruto to have one common language when it comes to Kenyans. But so far, we have seen through the national dialogue talks, a lot of presentations have happened. And from the presentations, of course, we have seen, or now there is sort of like a push and pull between the Azimio la Umoja as well as the Kenya Kwanza in regards to the National Dialogue Committee and what their mandate is, as well as the prioritization of issues that are being discussed there. Now, if we remember quite well, the main reason as to why, first of all, we got to where we are right now is through the andamano that was happening courtesy of the cost of living in Kenya, or because of the cost of living in Kenya, which is what Kenyans were mostly protesting about, which led to this committee being formed. And now is when, of course, unajua, like it's long gone, but now is when we are hearing from the committee that they are prioritizing the cost of living as the talks in or part of the bipartisan talks. Now, does this mean that first of all, that was not actually a priority, or does that mean that the National Dialogue Committee is actually not trying to do or trying to work out on what it was supposed to deliver in the first place?
First, Tamara, you need to understand that in Kenya we don't have leaders.
Okay.
We have politicians who always think for the next general election. While leaders think of the next generation. You've heard them talking about 2027.
No.
They're planning and arranging themselves for 2027. So the national dialogue that we've been brought about and being told that, this main focus is talk about the cost of living. And for sure, we've seen what the theme of that conversation and that dialogue has been entailing. It's about we want to create a seat for the official opposition leader.
No.
And perhaps the deputy opposition leader want to create an office for the prime cabinet secretary. And now when we found the theme of this conversation being about seats, moving forward, you find out that this theme has not talked about the cost of living. It was not their theme. It was not their priority. Now, same things are knowing as they were planned. We've seen Raila Odinga being satisfied with the dialogue. He has not come out personally saying that he's not satisfied. because it's being sorted out. We've seen Kalonzo Musyoka saying that things are okay. Unless they don't go as planned, they'll go back to demonstration.
To the streets, yeah.
So those are the only threats they're giving out. So those threats, they are only meant maybe to keep us busy and think that the government will not do according to, but we know what will be coming. If the agreement to create opposition leader seat and maybe the deputy, whereby Raila will be sorted and Kalonzo, now that is championing the debate, you find out that Martha Karua will be left out. And maybe she had sensed this long time ago. She ran and started what? Kamwene?
Oh, yes.
Kamwene Forum.
Yeah.
So this Kamwene Forum is like having a broker. It's Karua and other leaders, but using other politicians from the Kenya. Now, it's when you have a broker, you don't take sides. You're neutral. So when you're neutral, you bring the opposition and ask them, ask Kamwene, what have you given us? And maybe they will try to table the opposition, deputy opposition, maybe in favor of Martha Karua. Something I don't think can happen on her favor. And then if that one fails, they will be having another option for Kenya Kwanza governance. And then they will call Rigathi Gachagua and President Ruto and ask him, what do you have for us as Kamwene Forum? How have you included us in your government? And then maybe the president, will be coming there, taking maybe advantages, and then bring them all into this Kenya Kwanza government as we want to unite the country. You've seen us enjoying the coastal leaders taking political moves. You've seen other politicians all over the country taking moves bound on mimi ni Mluya, mimi ni Kisii, mimi ni mtu wa coast. So those are things that you've seen coming. So these are political developments that are going to be aligned depending on the outcome of the national dialogue. By the end of this month, we'll have had, but you saw Kimani Ichung'wah asking for the extension. Extra 30 days.
No.
So we don't really know what will be coming, but from indications, by looking at the clouds, you can tell today chances are it might rain.
No.
So by looking at the political developments that we've seen, we can easily give probabilities to what will happen out of the bombers of Kenya. And from what I've seen, or what I can bet on, is that they will want to have an amendment to the constitution, want to create out a seat for opposition leader, whereby Raila Odinga will be sitting for maybe until he leaves politics, Kalonzo Musyoka being the deputy opposition, Martha Karua being left outside, and maybe joining the government. Yeah, so the conversation at Bomas, remove the cost of living.
Now, mentioning the cost of living, and you've actually mentioned that the Azimio side of people have expressed or sort of comfortable with what is happening or part of the talks. Now, we saw the group that is from Raila Odinga as well as other Azimio leaders clearly state that if the cost of living is not something that is, or is not an agenda that is going to be discussed by the National Dialogue team, then they are going to boycott the talks. Is it too late for them to boycott the talks? And number two, if, and we have seen so far, even with the extension of up to November 28th, that is this coming month, for the report to be done by the National Dialogue team, still the agenda of the cost of living has not been mentioned. So if Azimio decides to boycott the talks, how is that going to be impactful to Kenyans?
One, it will affect the moment Azimio will come back for demonstrations.
No.
It will be noisy and messy. These I mean that the cost of living is unbearable for Kenyans. So now Kenyans will have every reason why they need demonstrations. And by that, it will put the president on a task. How again will he play and be able to control Azimio? It will almost become an impossibility for him. So by all means, the report must sort out Azimio. By all means. If they do a mistake of not sorting them out, and Raila Odinga and Azimio comes out for demonstrations again, it will be so bad, it will be so messy, it will be so unbearable. They will not be able to sort out this problem, and it will be very, 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 very difficult for us, for the Kenya Kwanza government. So by all means, they will be so Azimio will have nothing to lose. In fact, it will get even more added advantages, because Kenyans at the moment, hey, it will be nationwide demonstrations. And these might force President William Ruto to resign. You've seen people started even not attending rallies. You've seen even the involvement is not there like usual. Promises upon promises, lying to Kenyans each and every day without implementing one or two. So this one, so that's what I'm saying, that by all means they will look away to sort out opposition by giving them the opposition seat and the deputy.
So clearly from that, of course, as we see, the Azimio la Umoja leaders came forward and said that if the cost of living is not something that is going to be addressed through the bipartisan talks, then probably they're going to boycott these particular talks that are happening, or the national dialogues that are happening. And we even had the likes of Ndindi Nyoro actually mention that these bipartisan talks are favoring, or are more favorable to the Azimio side of people rather than side ya Mheshimiwa Rais, telling them it's now time to focus on leadership rather than these particular talks. Now, I just want us to listen to the two, that is some leaders from the Azimio la Umoja as well as Ndindi Nyoro, and then we'll be back to wind up.
Kimalizia, kwa sababu nimeona wana wetu pia wako hapa, wale wanaongea Kiswahili. Sisi tunajaribu sana. Na ningetaka niambie Wakenya wote, saa zingine inaweza kuwa tunaona misukasuko kama iliko ya mafuta. Hiyo misukasuko, ukiangalia uchumi zote za ulimwengu, hata zile zimekuwa, misukasuko inakuanga pati ya kuenda mbele. Lakini mimi nataka niasiwe Wakenya wote, tumeweka mikakati dhabiti kabisa. Ya kwanza, kuangalia elimu ya Kenya, kuangalia uchumi, kumake sure Kenya haingii kwa shimo kubwa ya madeni, na haswa to make sure our country is able to service its obligations without a hitch. Na ndio maana tumewekezea pesa mingi sana kwa maneno ya uchumi, kwa production ya uchumi, tukianzia pale kwa ukulima, pale kwa viwanda, ukienda kwa IT, ukienda kwa services. Tunawekeza pesa ya serikali na policies ndio to make sure that we enlarge the base of employment in Kenya, because one of the single most problem that we have is unemployment of the young people. Na nikimalizia kabisa, mnajua jana mimi nikitazama runinga pale nyumbani, nilikuwa tumeenda na rais pale Tagoreti, na vile sasa jioni naangalia runinga, hata tulikuwa na maimadha hapo ametembea hapo nyumbani na kutaka kuangalia kijana yake saa nyingine. Sasa tukiangalia, mimi naona wale watu wengine wa ile wakati ya maneno ya uchaguzi, najua mliona jana kwa TV, nikaona wanasema ati hii maongeo iko Nairobi, ati wanataka kujiondoa. Simunisikia haya maneno? Mimi wacha niseme honestly nikiwa hapa Nyeri, na ndio my last point. Unajua Kenyans, mimi tukiwa watu wa Nyeri, watu wote wa Kenya, tulienda uchaguzi last year na tukachaguana. Ni mwadhuranire? Mwadhuria upresident? Mwadhuria upresident? Ni nyuma mwadhurire? Ni mwana gata hairwo kura? Wehe mundu waige kura yaku muhuko kana ni wewe ikeirie? Leuri mugethurana. Twathi Nairobi ri, niĩ kĩharo ndaikarĩra ri, ndionire mũndũ ũrauma na thome akiuga kura itarwo. Gavana witũ, Gavana Kahiga ri, athurwo ri, andũ arĩa macindanaga nao ri, ithe matiganirie na magĩcoka maũndũ-inĩ mao. Mheshimiwa Cieni ri, macindana na my brother ũngĩ kanini ri, Ithio mundu ndathia wira-ini wake. Riu ngarigwo atiri, gite kia MCA kura ni njega, gite kia MP kura ni njega. Twathie Nairobi gukiuka andu makiuga aca ni twambie miario. Nikwenda tuge atiri ndi guku Nyeri. Nie ndindi Nyoro kwaria mari. Ingiuga miario yo ri, ona mbere ya muthugundi ati ni marenda kueheria ri, yothe ri tutigane nayo. Tondu marenda twaririe githurano, inyuĩ nĩ mũrenda twaririe githurano. Niĩ ngiuga atĩrĩrĩ ndĩ Nyoro, handũ aya akuzimia matinde magĩtutisha ũmũthĩ aka mĩario nĩ tũkũrenga rĩ. Sisi tumesema tukiwa Nyeri, hata hiyo maneno ya kuzungumza tuachane nayo, tufanyie wananchi kazi. Na matiga gutinda go hindi gutumemia. Aca niĩ ndamũra ũhoro wa ma aingĩ itu tukomaga ni kuruta wira wa bururi. Maundu macio ndamwira no tukorwo tutiaragia muthenya no ni wira muritu. Na ni murona na president ni arethikaza muno. Na gutire mundu perfect. Ona ni ndi Nyoro ndiri perfect. No ure turauga ni atiriri makinya maria turoya ni maguteithia bururi. Na tukioyaga makinya macio ri no tuge atiri andu aya opposition handu ha matindio muthenya makiugaga ngamiario anga ni tukuma kana tutikuma. Ivyo nĩ tuauga tũrĩ andũ a Mount Kenya na andũ a Kenya ona mĩario ĩyo ona nĩ thire. Na ndio wasikie vizuri kwa sababu hasikiagi lugha yetu. Tumwambie tukiwa Nyeri hadharani. Huyu mzee si tumeambiwa ni shujaa. Mzee hakuna mtu ya kupakapaka masoro huyu mzee. Kwa hivyo hata sisi tuwaambie hivi. Yesterday we saw the opposition leaders in Kitegera giving threats, purporting to give threats that they are going to walk out of the talks, the ongoing talks. We want to tell them it is even a favor that you are engaging in those talks. The people of Kenya, the citizens of Kenya have actually no time for those talks. The people of Kenya want all the leaders to do their job. If you are elected as an MP, you do your job. If you are elected as the other position, you do your job. If you are in the opposition, you already have a job. Your job is to criticize government constructively. Please, the opposition leaders, embark on that role. Mwanze vitisho. Kama mnataka kujiondoa kwa hiyo mazungumzo, sisi hata hatuko. Mnajiondoa kwa nini na sisi hata hatuko? Kama mnatembea mtembee mkinyamaza. Mwanze kutisha Wakenya kila siku. Hiyo mazungumzo hata hatuitaki. So hata kama mnajiondoa mnatusaidia. Thank you muno akanyamula adime.
Yeah, so those were Nini Nyoro's sentiments in regards to Azimio la Umoja team threatening to boycott the bipartisan talks or the national dialogue that is currently happening at the Bomas of Kenya. Not at the Bomas of Kenya currently, but if the cost of living is not addressed there. Now, of course, that is how we're going to end the K&A table right here on Kenya News Alerts TV. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for joining us. And most definitely, we'll be doing this every single day right here at the K&A table. So keep tuning in as well as keep on sharing. And I'm going to leave you with this video by the Azimio la Umoja team. But as we wind up, we are saying, depending on whatever time you're watching us, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you.
Kuna wangwana ambao wana majadiliano kuhusu ile masuala ya kitaifa. Na ndugu yetu Kalonzo Musyoka ndiye kiongozi. Kwa bahati mzuri, Wamalo wako hapa na kwa hiyo meza. Rafiki yetu Kalonzo, ndugu Kalonzo wako hapo, ndiye kiongozi wa upande wetu. Jeremiah Kioni uko ni fundi wa mitambo. Tekniko kule. Tunasikia wiki hii, nasikia kesho wanaenda kuandika report. Na watu ama wako karibu, mimi sijui, mimi siko kwa ikao, lakini mimi najua kidogo. Wako karibu kuandika report. Na wametoa ripoti nusu kwa muhtasari. Wakasema ni kama mambo 4 wamekubaliana. Lakini kuna jambo moja ambayo hawajatuambia imefika wapi. Hii mambo ya cost of living, gharama ya maisha. Sijui hiyo inawekwa kando kwa nini? Na hiyo ndio ilikuwa iwe ya kwanza. Sisi tunawaamini, lakini tunawaambia wakienda kuandika report bila report sahihi ya kupunguza gharama ya maisha, hiyo haitakuwa ripoti yetu sisi wa Kenya. Ripoti ya Wakenya ni ripoti ambayo itatokea kwamba bei ya bidhaa inashuka na Mkenya maisha yake imebadilika. Bila ya hiyo, mimi namuomba hiyo karatasi mkipewa, mkatae kusaini. Mkisaini, sisi hatuko na nyinyi. Thank you very much.
Ni swala la gharama ya maisha na swala la haki ya kidemokrasia, ile electoral justice. Wenzetu walileta mambo ya ofisi ile ya Musalia Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary, wakaleta ofisi ya upinzani, ofisi za kina mama, lakini yale tunapeana uzito kama wanaazimio ni yenu ninyi wananchi. Na kesho tuko kule Nakuru kufanya the final week. Tuko na wiki moja imebaki kumaliza hiyo kazi, and I want to assure you, as our leader will assure you today, without dealing with the issue of cost of living, there will be no deal.
Nataka nichukue fursa hii kwanza kutoa shukrani sana kwa Bishop Meli. Huyu mzee huyu. Alikuja kwangu, tukaongea na yeye na wakakubali ya kwamba wataandaa hii karamu ya siku ya leo. Iwe ni karamu ya maombi ili tuombee taifa la Kenya. Na wakafanya mpango mzuri sana. Wameweka leo, ukiona ile program wanasema leo wataombea peace and justice. Pili, national dialogue. Tatu, economy, uchumi. Nne, international peace between Israel and Palestine. Haya ndio ilikuwa wameweka kama theme ya leo, ya siku ya leo. Hawa ni watu ambayo wana busara. Tena ni watu ambao wanaangalia mbele zaidi. Amesema peace and justice. Because the late Reverend Desmond Tutu was South Africa. Alisema